to carry out operations. And we knew that anything could happen at any time. As we stand here at the present time, we should do everything to guarantee the protection of our citizens. And you are responsible for this. The Interior Minister had reminded us and the Interior Minister needs to know that he has your confidence. You are the state. And in your departments and ministries, you should show that the state is here. It is at its place. The place of the state is to use all the means where there are risks, locations that could be a target, and also to reassure the population, and which is the crux of the security operation, that he is at its highest level, and the means have been intensified. To reassure the population is to tell them that they live within a state of law, and with the will to be together, to refuse and reject bargaining, stigmatization and caricatures, hurtful ones, and to make sure that all our citizens act within the same republic. So we wanted that a stronger intervention should be to avoid and prevent the repetition of what had happened. Because repeated incidents can happen. We know what happened in the month of December, and we knew that the possibility could use arms so that to perpetrate other operations, prevention, information, make sure that all our security systems and intelligence systems and forces are aware of this responsibility. And finally, we should guarantee the security of the demonstrations that will happen. Some have happened spontaneously. They were respectful. All citizens are invited to take part in these manifestations and demonstrations. There is no control. It is the same conviction and determination that should be leading our citizens who will be taking part in the march of Sunday.
François Hollande trying to reassure the people of France this morning in a press conference in the past hour. Well, just to recap for those viewers who are joining us, we've had a dramatic car chase down the N2 this morning. The two brothers that were being sought in connection with the death of 12 people here in Paris on Wednesday, the murder of those 12 people, are now holed up in a printing press in Dammartin. I've just seen a news flash from Agence France Presse reporting that a man claiming to be one of the hostage takers has made contact with the TV channel BFM. That is the live continuous channel here in France. Their source, AFP source, is someone within the security forces. BFM have not run anything yet of that conversation, if indeed it took place, and they would not comment to AFP on that claim. Well, let's go to Dammartin. It is a very fluid situation, a very dangerous and precarious situation for people who live there. We can speak to Inchal Liez, who is a resident. He lives or is in a building 400 meters from the printing press where these two hostage takers are now surrounded. Inchal, thank you very much for joining us. Tell us what you can see.
You're welcome. Now we can see only policemen on the road. There were some helicopters in the morning, but now they are on the ground. And I've asked a policeman, and he told me that they are negotiating with the killers. So,
there was some everything there in Charles.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a bit of a delay on the line, but there was some confusion this morning in Charles about what happened when these two brothers arrived in Dammartin. Can you tell us what happened, what played out?
I've seen that there were shotguns in the street, and now they are with the hostages, sorry, and we we don't know really what's happening now. The only thing I can say that is they are negotiating. In the morning there were 4 helicopters in the sky and a lot of policemen. They told us to stay inside in the house and to not go outside. So that's everything we have now.
Talked about shots being fired this morning. How many shots were fired, and were there any injuries in Dammartin?
I don't know how many shots in injuries. I don't really know. Apparently, there was shots near shops. But that's everything I know. Now we are
just give us your local knowledge of the local area in Dammartin. Around that printing press, what kind of buildings are there?
You have there are another building for factories. Only factories. You have some parks for buses and garage. That's everything. A lot of buildings for factories.
And how close is it to a residential area? We were hearing that there are children that have been locked in schools and are being confined to schools. Is it near a primary school?
Yes, it's near a high school. Near a high school. They are confined inside, and all the schools in the cities near Dammartin are confined.
Just tell us a little bit about your situation. How many of you are in your house, and how are you keeping abreast of the news?
In my house, we are 4. There is my sister, my mother, and 1 neighbor. Everything is scared, worried. We want it to finish. So that's a very difficult situation.
Yeah. I mean, just tell people, because people won't be aware of where Dammartin is in relation to Paris, but how far is it, how long does it take you to drive to Paris? And although we're speculating, would you imagine that these 2 men were trying to get back into the city?
Dammartin is, with the car, half an hour, because there is a lot of traffic, but it's not really far. And we have known that they were near Dammartin yesterday, but we can't imagine that they are here now. And
well, inshallah, do keep safe where you are at the moment. We thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News. I'm going to bring in Claudius Casali, who is from France 24, in a second. I just want to talk, before I bring him in, about the situation here in Paris, because I've been driving around this morning, and although events are focused in Dammartin, where there is a very fluid situation, there is a precarious situation here in the capital, because we had a shooting in Montrouge yesterday in the southern suburb. There is speculation in the French media that perhaps that man is known to these 2 brothers. He is still in the wind, and so we must presume that there is a separate investigation still ongoing, very tense situation, to try and find that gunman. Let's bring in Claudius Casali, who is from France 24. Claudius, thank you for joining us. Let's just talk about that 3rd gunman for a moment, because although we're focusing on Dammartin, I get the sense here in Paris that the police are poised and ready to react should something happen here in the capital.
Absolutely, and there's a heavy police presence, as you've seen yourself in Paris, with a huge number of forces deployed. This is the highest terror alert, state of terror alert in France, declared by the French president. So you've got forces all over the place in the metro, but also outside government buildings, museums, tourist landmarks, and of course they fear that they could be more attacks, and that's why also the French President François Hollande said earlier that he praised the spirit of the rallies, but also said that Sunday's mass rally needs to run smoothly, and that forces will be there to protect citizens. You were mentioning that shootout yesterday in Montrouge in the south of Paris. For the time being, there is no proven link between the two cases, but it's true that anti-terrorist prosecutors have been investigating the case and carefully monitoring the situation, obviously. And here in Paris, people are watching the latest developments happening in Damartin. People in France have been extremely concerned, obviously, by this attack on Charlie Hebdo, and they want all this to finish as quickly as possible. The people I was talking to this morning were rather skeptical, they were hoping that it would come to an end quickly with no bloodshed. The problem being now that, according to the Member of Parliament for Seine-et-Marne, the area where the two suspects are now, well, according to him, contact has been established with the suspects, and the suspects have said that they want to die as martyrs.
Just looking at the situation, Claudius, I mean, good news in the sense that they've identified where these men are, but bad news in the sense that they're now again in a residential area.
Absolutely, and presumably they've got hostages, at least one hostage. And as we've just said, if they are to try to die as martyrs, then we could envisage a bloodshed in the coming hours, minutes. And that's why it's so important for the special forces operating in the area to establish contact as they've been doing so. It appears that they've been able to negotiate more or less with the two suspects, at least come into contact and talk to them. François Hollande, the French president, is monitoring the situation. He's the man in charge. That's what he wants to show. He went to the Interior Ministry minutes ago, and he came back by foot. It is a short distance between the Interior Ministry and the Élysée Palace, but still, it's quite a bold move, and clearly he wanted to show that he is not afraid, that the French people are not afraid. It's one of the slogans that has appeared since the Charlie Hebdo attack. On n'a pas peur, we are not afraid. Just as much as Je suis Charlie, I am Charlie, another slogan that we've been hearing here in Paris and across France, actually, in these gatherings that have been taking place on a daily basis since the attack on Wednesday on the headquarters of Charlie Hebdo. I was at the scene of the attack only a few hours after it took place, and I can tell you there was a huge amount of concern. Parisians spontaneously turned up at the scene of the attack to try to see what had happened, to express their solidarity. Also, there were people with banners, people in tears, and that was the first stage before the evening rally at Place de la République with these images that went around the world where you saw, despite the freezing temperatures, thousands of people holding candles, holding pictures of the cartoonists who were killed, and with the slogan Je suis Charlie, and people chanting slogans saying that freedom of expression is a right and needs to be defended in France.
In that spirit that you were talking about, Claudius, I want to talk about this Republican march that we're seeing on, or we're going to have on Sunday. While we're doing that, we're going to, I think, float some pictures of Damartin because it's a quickly moving situation there. But while we're looking at those pictures, let's talk about the Republican march on Sunday. Thousands expected to come onto the streets here in Paris, but the president alluded to what will be an enormous security headache.
It will be a security headache, and it's also a political headache for François Hollande because, unfortunately, for him and for his cause for national unity, well, the French far right has now set itself aside. Marine Le Pen went to the Élysée Palace today. She was received, just like all the other leaders of the French political parties, she was received by François Hollande, who talked to her, who briefed her on the situation. But there's been a bit of turmoil, let's say, with the French authorities not formally inviting her to Sunday's mass rally, and she's spoken out, said that because she wasn't formally invited, like Nicolas Sarkozy and the other leaders of France's political parties, well, she wasn't going to turn up. And she also said that it's the example that the socialists don't want national unity in the country. So that has sparked also a lot of criticism because many French people think that it's not the time and place to be having these types of discussion at a time when France is having to cope with first, the most deadly attack in decades on French soil, and also with this manhunt that has mobilized a huge number of forces, and which is clearly the largest counter-terrorist operation in modern history in France.
Yeah, well, quite. It's very interesting to hear your thoughts. Claudius Casali from France 24, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Just a line of copy that I've had in the last few minutes. I'm hearing that the remaining staff of Charlie Hebdo took up their temporary headquarters in the Libération newspaper building this morning. This is so they can bring out next week's edition. There are about 30 of them who will be working out of Libération. Interesting choice of building because last year I was at Libération and they had a gun attack in their reception, killing a young photographer there. So the staff at Libération will certainly know what the staff of Charlie Hebdo are going through, and they are going to, in defiance, put out the edition next week. The one that perhaps Stéphane Charbonnier, the editor, had been discussing at that editorial meeting when he was killed alongside his colleagues. Well, in Dammartin, about 30 or 40 kilometres north-northeast of Paris, it is a fast-moving situation this morning, but at least the police now have these two men cornered in that printing press. If you're joining us, they do have a hostage, we're told, and they have communicated with witnesses in the area and with the media to say that they want to die as martyrs. Well, let's hear from Heathcliff O'Malley, who is a photographer with the UK's Daily Telegraph.
We can just see lots of police around. I saw some armoured vehicles being moved, possibly in the direction of the industrial estate as well. One sort of camouflage vehicles with one of them with a heavy gun on it. So sirens going off everywhere, and just a huge police presence, obviously a huge media presence. And like your correspondent said, we've heard reports that police have made contact, and that these gunmen wish to die as martyrs.
Are you able to, with your cameras, are you able to home in at all, Heathcliff, on the scene itself, on the premises?
No, we can't. I mean, where we are, we're also surrounded by more woodland, and we just can't get a clear view at the moment. We've been trying all different avenues, and the police are doing a very good job of keeping us out of the way. But we're just trying to move around and just see where we can find a better vantage point from at the moment.
Well, I guess that's their job, so we can understand that much. Were you also further north, Heathcliff? Have you been involved in what has amounted to this chase across country?
Yes, I mean, I stayed overnight in Longpont, and this morning, as soon as we heard reports, we head down the road and we're following some of the police vehicles to the scene. And we stopped over by the side of the road, and we could see all of the helicopters hovering above. And obviously the police just kept moving us on, and we just kept stopping and moving, just trying to get pictures wherever we could, really.
Well, we are hearing from Dammartin that children in one nearby school to that printing press are being evacuated, so they are managing to move out children safely.